know, the extradition case where the U.S. government, they indicted the Mohamed and his father, Azrudin Mohamed, the leader of the opposition, his father, a lot of things in the States, a lot of offenses, and they made a request for them to be extradited to Florida in the U.S. to stand trial. As was expected, they have challenged the old process, and the extradition case is going on in the magistrate court. Magistrate Judy Latchman was brought to deal with that matter. And as we have pointed out, the thing backfire on the government. And I say that based on the evidence. Because Azrudin Mohamed, the Attorney General said that the request for extradition was received on the 30th of October. And that was Thursday, the 30th of October. The next day, the Friday, the 31st of October, Azrudin Mohamed and his father were arrested and taken to court. I think it was Court 7. They had made arrangement for Magistrate Judy Latchman to come and to preside over that matter. They took them there the afternoon, and the surprise they got is that both Azrudin and his father were granted bail. And they have said it, you know. They said, even recently, one of the lawyers, Mr. Glenn Hanneman, said that in matters like that, they shouldn't get bail. So they didn't expect them to get bail. And more than that, bail was granted at a sum that allowed them to pay in cash and they walk away, because that was the Friday the 31st. And bearing in mind, the Monday, the 3rd of November, was the day when the members of parliament were to be sworn in. And as we have said, they had anticipated that Azrudin Mohamed and his father would have been remanded, and therefore Azrudin Mohamed would not have been available to go to parliament when the 13th parliament was convened to be sworn in as a member of parliament. And if you're not sworn in as a member of parliament, then you can't be a leader of the opposition. The thing backfired. They were put on bail, and therefore Azrudin was able to go there the Monday to be sworn in as a member of parliament. And they have done everything that they can. Everything, including spending millions and hundreds of millions of dollars to bring a whole battery of liars to get Azrudin. Father is collateral, I believe, out of the jurisdiction into the arms of the U.S. And let me say this: I am not representing Azrudin Mohamed. I have no brief for Azrudin Mohamed. I'm talking about the rule of law and how things are going. Now, one aspect, you know, the Mohammeds challenged a lot of things. They challenged the involvement of the Home Affairs Minister. That matter went to the acting Chief Justice. He dismissed it. It has already been heard in the appeal court in Guyana. And they too threw it out. Now it's gone to the CCJ. It has gone to the CCJ. That is what you call labor time. That is what you call labor time. This matter is already in the hands of the CCJ. And today, the CCJ is scheduled to do what they call case management in that matter. Let me understand how this thing is moving quickly. Today is case management. What is case management? Case management is where the lawyers involved for both sides, they will get, as case management suggests, the court is going to tell them when they got to make submissions, when replies got to be done, and they're going to set a time frame. The court, that is what case management is all about. A time frame will be set for the various interactions and interjections. Submissions by this date, reply by this date, if arguments are to be made. That is what is supposed to happen today at the Caribbean Court of Justice, our apex court. So let me understand. That is one aspect. That is the aspect relating to how the matter is dealt with in the High Court. Now we have the matter in the magistrate court. We have the matter in the magistrate court. And what happened? When today is Wednesday, when the matter came up, it was yesterday, Monday. When the matter came up on Monday, you have had a lot of postponement and so on, and they are trying to allege that the Azrudin and his father are trying to unnecessarily delay this matter, right? They are trying to unnecessarily delay the matter and so on. So, but if the matter, let me say this, let me be very candid. If they are trying to delay the matter. What is wrong with that? That is a normal thing in Guyana. Lawyers will make a request for adjournment on a whim, right? Police not ready to give disclosure, and people who have matters before the court it's just dragged out for a long time. I told you people, CC and I were charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, 19th of May 2021. That matter did not conclude till December 2023, right? Then I was charged at the same time with these allegations of sexual assault, and that only concluded last month. So these things take a long time. But I guess I want to say, because it's an extradition matter, it shouldn't take all along. They should drop everything and make sure this thing is fast-tracked through the system. So it is really reported. Let me read this. I got a lot to say about it. Mohamed extradition case adjourned to April 7th after Azrudin Mohamed's dengue diagnosis. That is on Monday. The Mohamed's extradition hearing faced another delay today after the court was informed of the businessman and opposition leader Azrudin Mohamed being diagnosed with dengue fever, and therefore being unable to attend the hearing. The court summoned Dr. Kewal Dalip, who was listed as on the medical document provided to the court after the prosecution raised some concerns over the diagnosis and delays. Appearing outside the witness box this afternoon, Dr. Kewal Dalip, who operates a medical center on Sandibab Street, Kitty, confirmed that Azrudin Mohamed was diagnosed with dengue fever on Monday. Dr. Dalip told the court that Mohamed would need a maximum of 12 days to recover from the mosquito-borne illness, and it was unlikely that he would be better before then. Asked by the principal magistrate if he was certain, Dalip responded in the positive. Then he's quoted there saying, "Maybe I will check him in 10 days' time," the doctor added. According to the doctor, Mohamed was prescribed a number of medications to fight the infection, with at least one of the medications causing drowsiness, therefore making it difficult for Mohamed to even join the proceedings via Zoom. Special Prosecutor Glenn Hanneman told the court that on closer examination of the medical certificate and documents provided to the court this morning, a number of red flags were detected, adding that the doctor should be placed under oath and cross-examined. But the principal magistrate denied that request, but invited Hanneman to state his concerns and seek the necessary clarifications. Hanneman said, according to the records, Mohamed was diagnosed with dengue fever by the doctor at 11:30 a.m., long before the result of the blood test came back. According to him, the sample was taken at 11:50, and it was therefore impossible for a diagnosis to be made prior. But the doctor told the court he made a clinical diagnosis. But Hanneman did not stop there. Even as he was reminded by the magistrate that Dalip was not under cross-examination and not to be interrogated. He told the court that the medical records also indicate that Mohamed had sickle cell anemia, a lifelong disease, and from his investigation, Mohamed is not a sickle. However, the doctor told the court that what the records really indicate is a false positive for sickle cell, which means he does not have sickle cell. He said it is clearly stated in the document that there was no sickle cell found. The prosecution requested that Mohamed be subject to a second blood test, but the request was rejected by the defense. Outside the courtroom, Prosecutor Hanneman told reporters that he still asks questions. Quote, "I think the things that were raised as red flags were not effectively explained. I don't see how he could come to a diagnosis without a reference to the blood work, because my understanding is that is how you know it is dengue." He admitted that he came to the diagnosis before the blood work was done. And he did say on his medical that Azrudin Mohamed suffers from sickle cell anemia. So I had fears that he probably used the blood work from a different patient and they just put his name on it. Hanneman told reporters. Understand? Serious allegation. Hanneman for the prosecution making against the doctor, serious allegation. But the defense attorney, senior counsel writers told reporters that the court has embarked on a most unusual course as he rejected the assertions made by Hanuman. Quote, I could understand and appreciate the authenticity of the document being questioned because people could produce fraudulent documents. But I believe properly in a court of law that it ought to have ended on the satisfaction by the court that this is a document, the document is prepared by Dr. Dalip, who is a distinguished medical doctor and medical professional. Ford said. He said the question raised by Hanuman were a waste of time and a display of his lack of knowledge and that of the laws of Ghana. Quote, the authorities indicate that what he sought to have investigated by cross-examination without Dalip going on the oath is in fact unacceptable. What he cited as a red flag is a bunch of nonsense. A doctor, in the experience of Dr. Dalip, will well be able to determine whether someone is likely to be suffering from a particular ailment and then check confirmation on it, Ford said. He maintained that there was no basis for Mohamed to do a second blood test. The case was adjourned to the 7th of April, 2026. So you get a synopsis of what's going on there, right? So that was on Monday. For y'all get it, so let me give it some more context. Let me play the response part of which I just read from Mr. Hanuman and Senior Counsel Ford. Listen carefully, and then I'm gonna invite Mr. Conway to for us to analyze. Go ahead. Here we go.
Mr. Hanuman, but you did highlight some red flags. You spoke about the timing. You spoke about whether the test was really conducted. You spoke about whether the doctor says he is. Address those first, please.
Well, the magistrate obviously was satisfied by many of the answers that the doctor gave. I wasn't, but I mean, it's not my call. I think the things that were raised as red flags were not effectively explained away. I don't see how we could come to a diagnosis without a reference to the blood work, because my understanding is that is how you know that it's dengue, is because of the blood work. He admitted that he came to his diagnosis before the blood work was done. And he did say in his medical that Azrudin Mohamed suffers from sickle cell anemia. And that's a serious diagnosis and something that you're born with. And it probably means that his parents have it. We've never heard that he suffered from this before. So I had fears that they probably used the blood work from a different patient. That was my fear. And they just put his name and so on it. I would have liked to question the person from the lab. I would have liked to see the books that record the sample numbers and things like that. Wasn't allowed.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Today, Dr. Dalip presented himself to the court. He indicated that Mr. Azrudin Mohamed is unable to attend court because of his medical condition. However, there were a number of red flags raised by the prosecution. Your response to those red flags?
Well, the first thing is that this is a most unusual course adopted by the court. I could understand and appreciate the need for the court to verify the authenticity of the document because, people could produce fraudulent documents. But I believe properly in a court of law, having course to the system that we follow, that it ought to have ended on the satisfaction by the court that this was a document in fact prepared by Dr. Dalip, who's a distinguished medical doctor and member of the medical profession. The questions raised by the prosecutor, Glenn Hanuman, are worthless, a complete waste of time, another display of his lack of knowledge of the law and the proper procedures to be adopted. The authorities indicate that what he sought to have investigated by cross-examination without Dr. Dalip going on oath is in fact unacceptable. What he cited as red flags is a bunch of nonsense, right? A doctor in the experience of Dr. Dalip will well be able to determine whether someone is likely to be suffering from a particular ailment and then seek confirmation of it. It happens every time in a legal profession, at least. A client comes to me, they explain their story, I analyze it, I conclude what should happen long before I initiate the formal steps in relation to whatever is needed by them. So there's no basis for any red flags. The court paid no attention to even though she permitted them, she paid no attention to the questions raised, with which Dr. Al-Dalib answered positively. You know, I have been very silent on the role of Mr. Hanneman in these proceedings. Is a person and a friend who I've had great regard to, but I am coming to the conclusion, which has been formed by the other members of the legal team on our side, that Mr. Glenn Hanneman seems to be operating as an agent of persons who have personal malice against the Mohammeds. I can't understand a distinguished member of this profession with the years of Mr. Hanneman perpetually displaying the level of hatred and animus in relation to the Mohammeds. I believe it's time that Mr. Mohammed explained to the public who has retained him in this matter. Sorry, Mr. Mohammed explained, Mr. Hanneman explained who he has been retained by and whether he's being paid by the state. Because I find it very strange and very remarkable that on each and every occasion, without being paid by the state, if he's not, that he will journey from Portugal to Guyana to undertake such a display of stupidity.
Mr. Ford, could you say what is the basis or the foundation for refusing on your client's behalf for him to take a second blood test?
Because he has no right to. There's no obligation on him in the face of a medical report which says what is his illness to prove anything. It is as if somebody's charged for murder, they don't not on any obligation to go in the box and give any evidence. He has a right to remain silent. He has brought a doctor who would have spoken on his behalf. This is a very serious matter. And we know in this country, we take a lot of things for granted. We have on display perpetually the personal details and medical records of the Mohammeds being displayed throughout the length and breadth of this country and around the world. You really think that that is appropriate? Forget them as being accused of being of a wire fraud or whatever is happening. What has happened to the basic sense of decency in this republic? We must pull ourselves together. But is it not a limited?
Mr. Ford, Mr. Hanneman said he would go as far as to get footage to ascertain whether Mr. Mohammed indeed visited the doctor's office and conducted those tests and so forth. Is he likely to find the contrary?
Mr. Glenn Hanneman could go to Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. He could do whatever he wishes because he's on a course of stupidity. That is my position on it.
He is on a course of stupidity. Well said, Roysdale. Well said. And let me say this. I have known Roysdale Ford long before he even became a lawyer. We were neighbors. His father is a former policeman, Roy Ford. Used to be the quartermaster. Very decent, reputable. I knew his mother. I knew his family. I have never seen Roysdale as agitated as he was there a little while ago. Because the man right is stupidity. And let me say this before I bring in CC. Let me say this. I asked the same question, and I think I discussed it with CC or somebody. This man produced a medical certificate to the court. And as the senior counsel pointed out, the only interest the magistrate should have is whether that document was an authentic document. And from the time the court was satisfied that the medical certificate that was produced was authentic, that should have been it. But there it is. And you know, it borders on a level of dishonesty because the doctor explained that the sickle cell mentioned was a mixed diagnosis. The man is suffering from sickle, and then Glenn Hanneman going into this sickle cell thing and all of that. But why is it, even if it is that he's a suffering from sickle cell, why should that be made public? What happened to the old tenet of doctor-client confidentiality? What happened to that? What happened to that? First of all, I believe, it is my belief, right? I may be wrong, but I believe that the doctor had no legal obligation to turn up in court because he was sent for. I don't know, he was summoned, I don't know if the magistrate wanted him. Some people have said, well, he summoned me to come as a witness or whatever. But the doctor turned up, which to some extent surprised me, right? If it is that you are questioning the authenticity of the document, right? The lab test, you believe it is fraud, make a report to the police so they can investigate the fraud. If you believe that the doctor is covering or anything like that, make a report to the medical council so the doctor can be dealt with. But you get a man, want to put him under oath for cross-examination and all the type of nonsense. What are we coming to in this country? What are we, or what have we become in this country? So people, medical history and all those things is no longer confidential. According to Glenn Hanneman, this thing is no longer confidential. We are going down a slippery slope. We are going down, or we have gone down a slippery slope. I have much more to say on this. Let me bring in CC for him to have his say at this stage. CC, I'm sure you would have been following it. And as an old prosecutor, a retired senior police officer with a lot of knowledge, you too might have been surprised at the course of action. Go ahead.
Well, I was following the course of stupidity, you know. First thing, I wanted to know why the magistrate had wanted the doctor to be there. Was she not certain whether the medical certificate was bogus or not? And if, when they turn up, you find that it was authentic, end of the matter, done the dance there, done the stupidness there. You're going into the whole set of big nonsense about the place. You check, and yes, the doctor say, if the magistrate felt it is a bogus thing, that this documentary, this medical certificate is genuine, issued by a registered medical practitioner of high standing. So yes, this is what I submitted. End of the matter. You're going into all kind of thing, and then you mentioned Paul rightly. What about confidentiality, doctor, clients, conversation, relationship, and then you spreading across the world, giving the impression that the Mohammeds, sickle cell, parents, and he and his parents, you know, it's alarming. It was uncalled for. I'm making going back to the opening point. You check, and it say this thing is authentic. The dance done there. They don't dance done there. Why are you going into all those, get the lawyers them to go into all those kind of things there? Huh? You know, total nonsense, total stupidness out there. And as you rightly mentioned, the doctor maybe is a decent person that he ain't magistrate want to return. You should have summons him, do the right thing and summons him, let them appear from the magistrate. But saying here, it's sheer stupidness. Stupidness to the highest degree played out in court that day.
You know, I don't, a comment is here. I think it's important for me to answer to it. Somebody say, Rita said, we should not even care about what happened to them. Rita, it's not about what happened to them. It's not about what happened to them. It's about what happened to all of us. Because remember Pastor Neil Muller said a prayer. He made a poem. When they came for the Jews, nobody spoke out because there was no Jew. He was not a Jew. When they came for the Christians, nobody, you know the poem? And when they came for him, there was no one left to speak for him. That is why we raise this issue. This is not about the Mohammeds per se. This is about a system. Because if they can do that to them, then they're likely to do it to us. And that is why we are speaking out about it. Not Mohammed, as we said before, we all know brief for Azrudin Mohamed or his father. None at all. But what we're talking about, how the system is being used. And then Mr. Ford, senior counsel, made a point about the payment and all of that. Hear what the Attorney General finally admitted. The Attorney General, Anil Nandlal, SC, MP, last night admitted. Hear what he said.
Till the 7th of April. Mind you, in the meanwhile, the state of Guyana, taxpayers' dollars are being spent to bring these lawyers in to the country and to upkeep them while they're here. And dates are fixed, and these dates are simply vacated. And the lawyers come here, and they have nothing to do, and they have to fly back. And this doesn't seem to concern the court. This doesn't seem to concern the court.
Why should the court be concerned with that? Why should the court be concerned with that? Perhaps you will want to address that, right? Perhaps you'll want to address that. But talking about this medical thing, it is a worrying thing, Rita, because if you recall, it was last year, January, I think it was. Remember the tribal union, the tribunal set up to dismiss Assistant Commissioner Calvin Brutus? Y'all remember that? I don't forget these things, right? Because at that time, there was a Dr. Ravi Motilal who had granted leave. I think it was 14 days leave he had granted to Brutus, right? And the tribal union or the tribunal at that time summoned the doctor, Dr. Ravi Motilal. And let me read what the little research that I did said. Dr. Ravi Motilal was summoned by the Police Service Commission Tribunal in January of 2025 regarding a medical certificate he provided to former Assistant Commissioner of Police Calvin Brutus. The doctor reportedly withdrew a 14-day sick leave from Brutus after a closed-door meeting with the tribunal. Then they say some details. The incident, the tribunal summoned Dr. Motilal to examine the validity of the medical leave issued to Brutus, who had been skipping hearings for accusation of misconduct. Following a closed-door meeting with the tribunal members, Silal Prasad, Shoshona Lal, Kioma Griffith, Dr. Motilal withdrew the medical certificate. Then it is reported here that ethical concerns, the Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy, accused Dr. Motilal of violating the Medical Practitioners Act by sharing confidential patient information without consent, right? Then, so while the tribunal convened, Dr. Motilal stated he was never formally served with a summons to appear, contradicting assertions that he was evading attendance. You hear what's going on? So again, Rita, is not about the Mohammeds. It is not about the Mohammeds. This thing happened before, and no action was taken against Dr. Motilal. Dr. Motilal issued Brutus with 14 days sick leave. And when the tribunal summoned him to some closed-door meeting, he then withdrew the 14 days that was granted to Brutus. So on what basis was it granted in the first place? That should have required some type of malpractice investigation. But you see, these things are allowed to go. These things are allowed to go. You give a man 14 days sick leave, and then when you come, I think you say you didn't know the man before the tribunal. What that got to do with it? You should have issued the sick leave based on the examination you did and the condition that the patient had. But that is why you got to keep talking about these things. And let me read the next. Let me tell you a next part. Let me tell you on the next part. They're saying that they're talking about the sick leave granted to Azrudin Mohamed, right? The sick leave granted to Azrudin Mohamed. He facing extradition, and then he gets sick leave. They forget that Jagdio, this is Stabrook News of the 23rd of June 2015. Jagdio ill, unable to attend court. The private charge against former head of state Bar Jagdeo was adjourned to July 13 following the submission of a medical report. Jagdeo was scheduled to return to court yesterday, but the medical report submitted to the court stated he was unwell and not fit to attend the hearing. Sabrok News gathered that the medical report was prepared by Dr. Kumar, only name given, of Georgetown. It was also learned that the doctor had ordered Jagdeo to be on 2 weeks bed rest. The private charge was filed by attorney Christopher Ram, and it accused Jagdeo of making racially divisive statements at Babu Jan. I said Jan, J-O-H-N, Babu is not J-O-H-N, I think it's J-A-H-N, something like that. Quarantine. It's alleged that on March 8, Jagdeo uttered statements which could have resulted in racial or ethnic hatred among the people in violation of Section 139D of the Representation of Peoples Act. Jagdeo has been represented by Senior Counsel Bernardo Santos and attorneys Anil Nandlal, Marceline Bacchus, Adrian Anamaya, and Perry Gosai, while Ram is being represented by Trenton Lake and Charandas Prasad. When the matter was called at the Wim Magistrates Court before Magistrate Charlene Artiga, she indicated that she had received correspondence from the defense informing her of Jagdeo's illness. Prior to acknowledging the medical document, Magistrate Artiga chided the complainant for contacting her via mobile phone. The reason for her being contacted by Ram was not stated in court. However, the magistrate made reference to an oral application made by defense counsel Marceline Bacchus, where he had requested an adjournment. Quote, I wish to make it abundantly clear, I did make a record of your request. However, I did not grant your request, end of quote, the magistrate stated. She further informed the attorneys present for both parties that in future she would not be entertaining any oral applications. She advised that in future all applications should be made through a clerk of court or the court office within the presence of both parties. And then she go on and take Jagdeo get sick leave. And there was no you and cry about that. But Azrudin Mohamed, of course, Azrudin Mohamed is a special case. He gets sick leave, which caused the matter to be adjourned until the 7th of April, and it's a big issue. It's a big issue. Let me. There's something else I want to read. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about this thing. I want to see interactions, right? Now, this is a post from attorney Ronald Daniels. I think he made it yesterday. He said, I usually skip past the shoddy reporting of Newsroom, one of the propaganda arm of the PPP. He said, I usually skip past the shoddy reporting of Newsroom, as it is, for me, oftentimes a pointed reminder of how low the bar in journalism is in this country, right? I pause on this article as my first impression from the image was that the doctor and staff were charged and before the court for some offense. While reading the excerpt disclosed that they were not charged for the commission of any offense, it reveals something more troubling. Let me show you what he's referring to. He's referring to this. This is the doctor and this person. And hear what they go on to say. Hear what they go on. Because this article, I have it somewhere. I should have printed it to read it for y'all. Because the article that he's referring to about this thing here. Let me hold on a minute. Let me see if I could find it. I really want y'all to have the context in which this thing was made. Because I think I have it here somewhere all a while. Bear with me. Y'all bear with me. Y'all. Yes, hear what it says. This is Newsroom article. It says, Dr. Kewal Dalip appeared alongside his employee, Joel Semple, an ex-policeman previously charged in 2020 for allegedly using his uniform to rob a teen. They were summoned by Magistrate Judy Lachman to provide explanation regarding the positive dengue test administered to Azrudin Mohamed at the Kewal Medical Clinic. But here, let me go on with the thing what Ronald wrote. Semple was not there with the doctor for an inquiry into the credibility of the medical report. Why does Newsroom find it relevant or consider it ethical to report that Semple was charged for the commission of offense some time back? Why does newsroom find it all right to paint Semple in a certain light when he is not there before the court facing any charge? Is the object of this to say, well, he can be believed because he is a criminal or an alleged criminal? You guys take such liberties with people's lives, livelihood, and future with this appalling kind of reporting. When the president is featured in your reporting, do you mention President Ali, who had 19 fraud charges, addressed CARICOM heads of government meeting today? Honorable Minister Nandalal, who was accused of stealing law books, held a press conference earlier. VP Jagdeo, who was reported Vice News, was taking significant bribes, remarked that Guyana is experiencing unprecedented economic growth. Responsible journalism matters for the holistic growth of our country. The established media should never be used as a government mouthpiece, and especially with reckless disregard as to whom it injures along the way when discharging this mandate. These are the overt and subtle ways in which your author promote and are complicit in the stigmatization and marginalization of already vulnerable groups of people in this beautiful land of ours, and with all the social, economic, and political consequences which flow from this characterization of vulnerable people in our society, especially Afro-Guyanese. It is disrespectful and distasteful, and you should have the decency to desist from it. Ronald Daniels. And let me remind you, Naoni, they don't say President Ali, who had 19 fraud charges. They don't say Minister Nandalal, who was accused of stealing law books. They don't say Vice President Jagdeo, who Vice News taking money. They don't say Kwame McCoy, who is convicted for several offenses. They don't say that. They don't say Vikas Ramkisoon, who was accused of rape. They don't talk about Alistair Charlie, who was charged with sexual assault of a boy and perverted the courts of justice. They don't tell you that James Bangamata spending before the court. They don't say that. But they take this picture and they put it up, and then they talk about this referring to Semple as a man who had faced some legal troubles and so on. That is the wickedness in them. That is the unprofessionalism in them. And again, Rita, that is why we have to talk about these things. That is why we have to continue to speak about it, right? Because again, I say, it is not about the Mohammeds, not about the Mohammeds. Not about the Mohammeds. Again, I say, before I bring in CC again, that if there was any concern about the authenticity of this tendered medical certificate, then the magistrate had a right to investigate that. She had a right to investigate that. But it should not have gone beyond that. Once the court was satisfied that the certificate was authentic, shouldn't entertain anyone asking all them stupid question about sickle cell and all this everything. And the doctor clearly explained it was a misdiagnosis, right? But it's sort of wicked, stink, and dirty. They're wicked, stink, and dirty. Let me bring in CC, and then we got to end up this matter. As I told you before, it's two matters we got to deal with this morning. That one, and we get the one with the man who died in the police lockup. So we are almost finished with this one. CC, go ahead.
Yeah, and they didn't tell you, they don't say that Dr. Ashley Singh was charged criminally. He was placed in handcuff, and you say you think they handcuff like badge of rank, and several others, But he coming back to Animal Farm. All men are equal, but some are more equal than others, Double standards. And for me, this whole thing stemmed from the magistrate questioning the authenticity of the medical certificate, and then things went haywire. Then you had a lot of stupidness. Nothing. If she had satisfied that this thing is genuine, I say, stop it. Done the dance there, done the story there. But allow it to go on, allow the stupidness to flourish. But certain people will have preferential treatment, and certain people will have to face the hammer. Yeah.
Yeah, well, before we go into the other issue, let me remind y'all what Sacho and you read what was
Suspect.
Hey yo, man.
Yo, Sasko.
We're rolling this tonight.
When I see my friends become my enemy, I have to far.
No one near them when I go.
No link, no bar.
No, no.
Cause I know dirty I can't sweep with broom. They are like the trees we can't bloom, and they shall slowly fade away. And I know dirty I can't wash with soap. The meditation we supply proof, and they shall slowly fade away.
Yeah, dirty heart can't sweep with broom. You know, the thing is dirty heart they get. Dirty heart. And folks, let me apologize if you hear some noise in the background. There's nothing I can